Hello.
All right, we'll now call the City Council regular meeting to order for March 14th, 6 p.m. Please rise for the invocation and pledge allegiance. Father, we thank you this evening, Lord. We just ask that you bless each and every person here, Lord. Father, we want to lift up Jim Bernard's daughter and his wife tonight, Father. Want hardship for an accident, Father. Lord, we just ask that you be there with her, be there with him, Father. That's that you strengthen that family, Lord. That's that you do a miracle in that family, Lord. Lord, we just ask that you send the Holy Spirit in this meeting tonight, Father. We ask that your will be done, Lord. In Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Madam Clerk, you'll please call roll.
Councilmember McGuire.
Here.
Councilmember McCure.
Here.
Councilmember Taylor.
Here.
Mayor Anderson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. First up, we have a proclamation for Water Conservation Month. Good. Whereas water is a basic and essential need of every living creature, and whereas the state of Florida Water Management Districts and the city of Avon Park are working together to increase awareness about the importance of water conservation, and whereas the city of Avon Park and the state of Florida has designated April, typically a dry month when water demands are most acute, Florida's Water Conservation Month to educate citizens about how they can help save Florida's precious water resources, and whereas the city of Avon Park has always encouraged and supported water conservation through various educational programs and special events. And whereas every business, industry, school, and citizen can make a difference when it comes to conserving water. And whereas every business, industry, school, and citizen can help by saving water and thus promote a healthy economy and community. Now therefore be resolved by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Avon Park, as well as the authority vested through the City of Avon Park Council, to hereby proclaim the month of April as Water Conservation Month. Next up, we have the minutes from February 28th. Be looking for a motion.
No. Motion to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or changes?
I just have a question
Go ahead.
about the agreement for the recycling. Have you heard anything back from that?
Yeah, I have that for my management. That's on that.
Oh.
Yeah. We got it back from the county. They didn't want all various changes, and so on your next meeting, you'll have it, and a representative from the county will be there.
Okay.
So you make a decision.
Anything else to add?
Well, I just, yeah, what they knocked out the most was the environmental clauses, which we were limiting the fact that should either get a pre-work assessment, environmental assessment of property, so we know what it is, and then if they ever stop doing it and we get the property back, we're not going to want the contamination on it, they wouldn't even agree with that. From what I could see, but with the markup, they wouldn't even agree not to break the law for talking. So maybe they have a different perspective than the kind of person.
That's, I'm sure we'll hear all about it in our next meeting.
It's your decision if you want to ignore those, but obviously.
Okay. Any other questions or changes on minutes? Seeing none. Motion seconds, we'll call roll.
Councilmember McGuire.
Yes.
Councilmember McCure.
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item number 6 is to be a public hearing for the second reading of ordinance 02-2022.
Ordinance in City of Avon Park multiplying recitals as the council purpose and intent, providing for amendment of water and wastewater treatment plant capacity fees to lower them back to 2020 rates, provide for other related corrections to the code, provide for codification and appeal of conflicting codes, ordinances and resolutions, provide for subject, provide for
I said, this will be a public hearing. 2-2022, public hearing, the ordinance is now open. Anyone wishing to speak on this issue can now do so. Seeing no takers, public hearing for ordinance 02-2022 is now closed. Are there any questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, I entertain a motion.
Make a motion. To approve the second reading of ordinance 02-2022.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember McCure,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Item number 7, we have purchase of aviation fuel. Finance Director Miller.
Yes, we generally purchase 4,000 gallons of fuel at a time. Last time we ordered the fuel, it took over 2 weeks to get here. So we're requesting purchase of 8,000, which is over the city manager's limit.
Do we have any questions for staff on this? As she said, typically this doesn't come to the council, but because we're ordering more, supply chain issues, it goes over the threshold, so it needs to come before us this time.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So this is for Melanie. This is usually ordered for shortage.
Or, I'm sorry,
For a shortage for gas price.
no, ma'am, it's for the fuel tanks out at the airport.
This is the fuel that all the airplanes buy at the airport. Any other questions?
Now, did it increase like before this agenda was put together? Did you?
It's gonna increase again, so when we got the quote on March 1st, it was $4.44 a gallon. On the 8th, we got the quote, and it's $4.82 a gallon. So chances are, when we actually get the fuel next week, it's gonna be even more than that.
Any other questions? You looking for a motion?
World Fuel Services, quote for the purchase, fuel purchase.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember McCure,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passes.
Item number 8, we have a request for road closure for the Pearl Watercross Jet Ski Races event.
Yeah, we had a on-site with Pro Watercross and all staff, city staff, fire department, the sheriff's office was there. The request is to shut down North Verona from Main Street to the next street. I forget the name of there here, but it's basically to put their semis and trailers there. We didn't want them on the grass. We can oil that. Plus, they were saying for the ones in Sebring, another place they do it, they want to leave the grass here because people put up tents. And they want to, the race is actually Saturday and Sunday. They're going to have practice on Friday, but the trucks actually come in, the semis come in on Thursday. And they said, for those of you who've been to the 12-hour Sebring, it's pretty much the same trucks as you get down there. So it's pretty big trucks and a lot of money that's sitting there. So they just asking for that to shut off, no problem for the city for that time.
Looking forward to it.
So just out of curiosity, has anybody that lives on that lake, do they know what's about to happen that day?
No, I haven't told them.
So, okay, so. there's
We-
been-
Go ahead.
Okay, you know, you're about, it's gonna be really loud and a lot of activity in the lake now.
Yeah, we can go around town.
Yeah, they're all rentals right there. There's one apartment strip, I think, we have 4 apartments there, and then that one house, I think, it's owned by the same owner. Actually. So it's Smith, Smith's property or his children's property. So we reach out to
Along
them.
the top of the street.
You're talking about the only house.
No, I'm talking about not just closing it, the event that's actually about to happen in the lake.
Oh, in
the
the lake.
noise and everything.
I mean, it's been talked about on the radio and the newspaper. And,
Yeah, I just haven't heard it, and I didn't see it in the newspaper.
So Mark, this is Verona and what?
It's North Verona Avenue from Main Street to Church Street.
Which is also the boat ramp road.
Correct.
And I know this is not the first activity we've ever had here at the lake. What has there been any complaints in the past about, the noise, the road closure, all that?
Well, I think this will be the first jet ski race we've probably ever had, other than maybe a few guys racing on their own that's ever been taking place.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't anticipate it would be louder than any of the music events that we have. We have the like the Rotary Bluegrass Festival every year, things like that. I'm not aware of any complaints as far as noise goes. People tend to like it, and because it doesn't go late into the night, you don't typically get irritated people.
And also to add to that, for the three newer ones on, this is also, the CRA approved to give $10,000 for them for marketing with CBS Sports, which is with the TDC paying the other 10. And we're in it, the city's going to end up getting a 60, 90 second, basically an advertisement of this selling in downtown Avon Park. They're going to use drones beyond the grounds. It's going to be professionally put together to try to bring more people to Avon Park.
Yeah, it's exactly the type of thing that we need.
And their hope is, because this happened in Sebring last year, the last time they were here and I was talking to them, if this goes over well here, like they did in Sebring, they'd like to bring it back-to-back weekends. So the teams come in one weekend, say do Sebring, they stay in the hotel, spending money, going out and eat, spending money, whatever they're doing, spend money, and then the next weekend, the race will be here in Avon Park. So that's the hope right now.
At the last TDC meeting that I was at, cities were competing. Like Placid wanted this to come to them, Sebring wanted it back. So honor that Avon Park was chosen because of all the business revenue that's been coming through Main Street and hotel. I think it's really exciting. Airstream usually does a really good job choosing the events that are good for the city.
Anything else? Entertain a motion?
I make a motion that we approve item B8 for the jet ski races.
Second. We have a motion and a second. No more questions, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember McCure,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Item number 9, discussion of rough draft agreement and lease transfer of brick building. Gary?
Okay, so this is my best guess as to what you want to see with regard to how to transfer it starts out with the lease, then the development phase of the project, where they're fixing the building up to make it tenable. And when that's done and it's got sufficient to where it can be inhabited, then transfer it, but there'll be the covenants that you asked for in the RFP and the deed, with types of businesses that you want to see on the property. Or put traffic and so on to Main Street, which was the whole idea of giving the property land exchange for development. I don't know how long you want to have those deed restrictions in place. 10, 20 years or more. But, this is what I suggested based on what I thought I would do if I was up here. I would want to see. It's just for discussion purposes only. Go pretty fast.
Okay. Well, having said that, so whenever we put out the RFP, or I guess back up a little bit more. So this building obviously had come to the city's hands. The CRA had an intention for it. That intention did not work out. The CRA ultimately wanted to get it off the back and get it back to the city itself. That's what we did. For lack of a better use of it, we finally decided to put it out for RFP in an effort to cast as big a net as possible. We went and actually opened up some of the zoning downtown to try to attract more business. Obviously, we have a bit of an issue downtown where they need more business. So this is a cornerstone building in right downtown Avon Park. So we need as many businesses as possible to come downtown to get the traffic. So in the RFP that we put out, basically the only stipulation was that they had to have a CO within 3 years. And if they didn't get a CO within 3 years, then there would be a $50,000 penalty per year. That was the main crux of it. So as Jerry said, in order to actually transfer it over, it seems as though a lease is going to be one of the only ways to go until the requirement is met. But as far as the requirements go, I don't think that we should limit it any more than what our development code does. That's the reason why we have our development code downtown. That's what's basically advertised. So to go and put additional requirements on it, I don't think would be a good idea. To get a CO on that building, obviously, there's a lot of investment that had to happen, with fire system, electrical, et cetera, et cetera. So this applicant's more than willing to do that, as they expressed in our last meeting. They put together a pretty good package for us. So I wouldn't suggest going anything above and beyond what the RFP had put out, other than what we need, from a legal standpoint.
Well, the RFP, it's saying types of businesses that you want to see.
Sure.
You want to see in that property. If you don't state those, then the zoning for that area is it's really very, very, very broad.
But
I love the idea was for foot traffic. But I think that's a good, this is your agreement. I just, put together the way I thought people might see it.
Right.
I just understand, if you're just gonna go just for every zoning that's there, it's really broad.
Well, it's not really broad, it's downtown commercial. C4 is any type of commercial. Which would be retail, it would be offices, that would be medical, it would be any one.
Pharmacy,
Sure. Any sort.
probably at some point, marijuana,
Well, not in downtown, it won't, that's why
probably
we,
even some river pharmacy, that's what it's statute says.
so there's nothing that you can do about that anyway.
You can, it's your property, you can put covenants on it. If you don't want to, that's your choice, please. I'm not trying to make an argument in favor. I just simply say, if I would, for me, I was trying to follow the RFP. We had desires to be stated in it, very specific. If you want water, that's fine.
But I was part of those conversations whenever we came up with this RFP, and I can tell you that they were not specific as much as they were trying to be inclusive. So the bottom line is we need more people downtown. So whatever gets us more people downtown is what the city's after. At least the old council was, it's been an election since then, so I look forward to hearing anyone else's comment.
Well, I pretty much agree with Attorney Burke. Of course, we want to get foot traffic down there, but I think we want to be still one of these within certain boundaries. I don't think we want to see medical marijuana down there. Have you ever been to a medical marijuana facility and saw the foot traffic?
Is there anything else besides medical marijuana you're concerned about?
Well, I'm just saying, I think, it could be, but I guess that's he brought it up, so.
Have you looked at our LDRs and what our zoning is?
No, but my point I'm trying to make is that I've seen medical marijuana buildings. And that is a lot of foot traffic down there, and I'm not sure if the city is looking for that kind of foot
I
traffic.
don't think anybody's debating medical marijuana. I don't think anybody wants to see that.
Well, if like the attorneys say, if we make it so broad, we wouldn't have a choice in.
Is there anything besides medical marijuana?
Well, let me just simply say that perhaps you might want to get Central Florida Regional Planning Council to come in and say, here's a list of things that commonly go in this site. Some you may want, some you don't want. I'd say before you finalize it, just know what you could have in this building if you're giving away. I said give away loosely because obviously you don't want to work.
I don't feel like we should set a very specific parameter, because I think the goal was to increase business downtown. If medical marijuana is the one thing that everybody's concerned about, maybe set as an exclusion,
Agreed.
but I don't want to put, we don't know what kind of businesses will come in there, what's going to work the best. If something, we may have something on the list that comes in, it doesn't do well, let's try something else. I would like for them to have the ability to change that.
So having overly broad restrictions is exactly what leads us to the problem that we're having right now downtown. So there was a big effort to unleash some of the zoning so that we could encourage more business to come down. So we don't want to march down this road of trying to be more restrictive. We want to be inviting to business.
I mean, the RFP clearly states, et cetera,
Right.
in the statement, therefore it's not limiting it to anything. However, if there are certain exclusions, then you can do an exclusion list versus say all inclusive.
Absolutely. And I don't think anybody is sitting here arguing in favor of medical marijuana. So just for the record.
Mayor, we'd be interested in anything that you guys want to prohibit, but to just tell us what this can happen there would be not ideal for our.
And for the record, this is
Dance halls. So anyway, if you guys have specific businesses, medical marijuana, something you didn't want in there,
Right.
we would entertain that, as long as they're not every business under the sun, but within reason.
sure.
But we don't want anything that just limits us to a dozen things that
Would be
may not
okay
make sense in 3 years.
Right.
if we had Central Regional Planning Council produce a list of the types of things they've seen going in this type of business, so you can at least have an idea of what you want to do. Otherwise, once it comes in, you can't deny it, because if it's the zone, it goes in. You can't say, no, we don't want to.
Mr. Burke, can I ask you a question? If we were to buy the building outright from the city today, let's say, I mean, would we be interested in buying a building like that with those deed restrictions?
I don't know.
It wouldn't make sense because especially if they're 10 or 20-year restricted covenants, it doesn't make any sense for us.
It doesn't really matter.
I just-
Building protections as council to consider before they transfer it. And
Yeah.
now it's their decision to make if they decide, well, they may supposed to be not apply it or do this work if we have these restrictions on it. That's their choice.
Sure.
I'm simply just making it available to you to know. And then later on, somebody doesn't say to you, well, how in the world did this happen?
Yeah.
You're
So-
watching it happen now.
So basically, if a person buys any building downtown in the C4 zoning, which is the same one there, and they want to put in anything that's adheres to our LDRs, they can. And there's nothing that this council can say about that because it's in our zoning, it's in our LDRs, everything's there. So why would this building be any different? I guess is the point that I'm making, because there's buildings on either side of it, there's buildings in front of it, behind it.
This is your building.
Because it's our building and we get to decide.
Okay. well,
My thing is the building is basically property. And we've been trying to get rid of it for a long time because it feels like an eyesore downtown. We're not able to use that space to revitalize Main Street because it's sitting there. And up until this point, we haven't had anyone step forward that was interested in doing it. And I'm a very wholesome person, and believe me, I would say exclude, certain things or whatever, but I feel like if we put such a tight band around what they're able to do in the building and they back out, then I feel like we would get the raw end of the deal by not having someone to develop this building, because it really is a pretty building, and I'd like to see it, back to what it can be.
Or if it goes for a few years and then the city gets it back, you're still gonna be in the same boat. You're gonna have a deteriorating building without anyone that's going to be pushing that building to be developed.
I feel like it don't have to be a tight band. It could be a loose band.
Well, that's why I've asked you repeatedly, what exactly?
Well, let us, like Attorney Burr said, let us get a list of some of the things that other cities has, put down in their downtown, and let us look at it. What's the big hurry? Let us look at some of the things, and maybe there's some things on the list that we can't think of right now that once we look at the list, oh no, this ain't something we want downtown. What's wrong with at least looking at a list? We're not telling them no.
Well,
We just
you're
say-
also taking up a lot of my valuable time. That's the
Mhm.
problem. Is that if we have to go 2 or 3 or 4 more meetings, that's months and months and months of time. But
No, we don't have
we
to
don't
go
want
2 or 3, 4 more meetings. We can have this on the 28th. I mean, it's not a whole lot of work to get us a list of different businesses that can go inside, I just think that we're trying to rush it. I'm just keeping it real. I just think that we're trying to rush it, and what's the harm in looking at some of the different offices that can be put in the building? And that way, in the future, we'll feel comfortable as a council to say, okay, we had an opportunity to look at some of the things. We're not saying that
we're gonna put a tight bang on you and say, no, you can't have this, you can't have that. At least some of us don't know, at least I don't know some of the offices that may be able to put in a building. You know what I'm saying? And so we would just like to see some of the different things. That's all. At least I would.
No, I totally understand what you're saying. I don't, but yeah, anything in downtown C4 zoning is what Mayor Anderson is trying to say. So you're basically prohibiting this one building downtown from certain uses. And if it's a limited scope, to say medical marijuana dispensary or something like that, that's understandable. But when you talk about, let's go in and see what we want you to have in there, then that really reduces the value of that building and that project.
Well, I think sort of tell us if it reduces the value to the point that you don't want to do it. That's fine. Just simply say that if the RFP said, and respond to the RFP, so the city's preference is for a future use to include multi-family housing, retail shops, lunch/dinner eateries, bakery, coffee shop, sports bar, brewery or tap room, etc., with the overall goal of creating a destination for the community and surrounding areas to live, work, shop, play, and to increase foot traffic in the downtown area. There's a lot of uses out there that don't fit that possibility. As whether they fit or not, I would ask Central Florida Regional Planning Council to use their experience in the past with regard to this particular zone and say, okay, these are things that could go in there the way it is right now. And let them choose. And if you don't agree, then they can say, okay, well, maybe not. Let's just go ahead, and they'll back off. But at least they're educated when they make the decision. I think if we force this down the throat, it's not going to be a happy event at some point.
Mayor, Randy says he actually has the list of what can go downtown.
Why don't you go ahead and read that list? This is already established in under C4, what we can and what we can't put down there. I mean, I don't know if people realize that. I have it hanging on that wall. I tell you what can and what can't.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point that the city council makes these regulations. Granted, we've made these regulations over the course of, the entire history of Avon Park, but they're put there so that we can develop the downtown Avon Park in a way that helps the community. But at the same time, we don't want to be overly restricted. In this particular case, you're basically saying that you're okay with all these regulations for every other building downtown, but this particular one is different. And it seems foolish because you have a group of people up here that are wanting to basically have the oversight of the development, but we're not developers. We have a group that is a developer that wants to develop this building. So the point is to let them use their imagination to see what they can do for Avon Park and what they can bring to downtown. That RFP, despite what you may think, Jerry, that I was here in that conversation, and the whole entire point of that conversation was to be as inclusive as possible, not exclusive. Do we prefer if there's a thing there? Yes, but it was a preference, not a guideline or even a restriction. It also says etc. So that part of that was not a gym. However, whenever the idea of a gym got brought up, this entire council seemed very happy about that, but it wasn't part of the list.
It basically says any business that allows you to live, work, shop, play, or in use of restaurant.
Exactly.
I mean, we could probably argue that we can shop, play, and work is about.
Nor should we have to argue about it, I guess is the point I'm trying.
Can I just add to what was on RFP? And I agree with Jerry on there might be some things you want, they go for this list will help, but actually Kevin's written that and got it with Jerry to see that actually language came from Sebring. That's what they had in there.
Okay. Randy?
This is all dictated under table 2.04 of the table that's in our LDR. And this is, there's too many to mention, but these are just a couple of examples of some of the businesses that are downtown. You can have a bed and breakfast. You can have appliance repair shop. You can have an antique shop. You can have a convenience store, no gas. You can have a drinking establishment. You can have a funeral home. Have general retail indoor less than 5,000 square feet. You have a hardware store. You have a laundromat. You have a restaurant, no drive-through. I mean, it goes on and on. It clearly spells out in this code what you can have, and what you can't have on it, what may need a development plan that's not for the still can apply for it. But there's a ton of things on it. And to me, everything from what I heard, is within line with what C4.
Sure. And Randy, from a code enforcement perspective, does an occupied building or an unoccupied building give you more trouble? Now, you tend to get filth, you tend to get people who are not supposed to be there. Whenever you have an occupied building, you have people there that are watching the building, that are taking care of it.
We tend to get compliance. Most of the unoccupied, we're calling up to New York or out to Washington State to try to figure out when. And
Right.
by the time that goes through, it's month. It's a lot easier to have somebody.
Anything else?
Something else about the contract.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
My other issue with it was, it prohibited incentives and utilities, being compensated, impact fees, connection fees, and things like that. However, on the RFP, we offer all of those things. It says as long as they, in the proposal, they make it known that they wish to use those things, which, they did in the proposal.
Mhm.
So, that part would go with, it offered already.
Jerry, do you have a response? Okay. Are they gonna write the contract or are you, Jerry? So this is the question that was proposed. The question that was proposed was about the writing of the contract. It was a very particular thing. Brittany, could you please repeat that?
Yeah, the contract that you gave us says the city agrees not to pay any form of utilities. Developer shall promptly arrange for and promptly pay all charges for electricity, water, gas, telephone, sewage, garbage, and trash removal service and other utilities or services furnished to the premises, including utility hookup and connection fees. However, in our RFP, we advertise certain incentives to make the project feasible, which might include but are not limited to conveyance of the property at no cost, payment of certain impact fees, housing incentives, tax increment rebates, etc. The developer just has to let us know that they request such incentives.
I didn't see that in the proposal.
It's in there.
Yeah, it's on. If you actually request not to have any of those fees until it's turned over to you guys. right?
Yeah,
Like
just
first
while we're
3 years.
sitting pertaining.
I think so. I think Ms. Bernice asked that question.
It was, Ms. Bernard.
So it's not till the time it's turned over.
Yeah, basically, while we're in development phase, the city was,
I don't think they have a problem with that.
yeah, no, it's just the way it's in the contract. It says that they won't during that.
Says what, it was up front.
We'll have to pay those during development, yeah, the way that the contract is written.
So I think the point here is that there's a lot of things in there that your attorney probably would like to speak with Jerry about the actual construction of the
Yeah,
agreement.
yeah, I didn't know if Mr. Burke worked directly with Mr. Thompson, and we could come to the next meeting with the.
Since there's
More
a push to have Central Florida Regional Planning come to our next meeting, I think it would be prudent if our attorney was to have a conversation with their attorney and perhaps work out an agreement to the best of their ability, as close to the RFP as possible, and also have the Central Florida Regional Planning at our next meeting so that we can hopefully have a closure of the deal or having a agreement agreed upon by the council.
The other thing that they may want to look at is it's very specific as far as within 10 days, 15 days, 20 days,
Sure.
certain things being done. However, everybody knows the construction industry now and supply issues. I feel like maybe that needs to be a little broader.
But
Um,
it's just for discussion purposes, so if they need more space, I'm sure the attorney will tell them. They need more space. I just broke it based on what I see in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kyle, love to get with you over the next week or so. We can send you what we're thinking. And
Sure. That way it leaves, very little for us to have to make decisions on. Everything we know is to be agreeable to you guys and from our city attorney. So that way it should be an easy process.
Al Thompson, attorney with Ryder and Thompson, attorney for Dan. Maybe just if we could get some clarification on a couple other items so that, we can kind of be on the same page.
Sure.
Try to kind of narrow this contract down for the next couple of weeks. There was a whole particular article about approval for plans and time periods for it to come back to council for approval. Is that something y'all would like, or can we provide some kind of high level, hey, this is what the intended plans and layout is going to be? So it's not a having to constantly come back and get multiple approvals along the way.
Yeah. So from my view, I mean, as long as the building officials and the fire marshals and everybody is okay with it, then I don't see why we would have to take it one step further when we can't supersede them anyway. So,
Site plan, for the building itself, what costs to lay it out, things like that. If you don't care about that, that's fine too. I'll take it out.
If
I
what,
think that if there's something about road, that's the decision you make.
sure. So if the businesses that are putting in there fit our LDRs and our land codes, I could care less how it gets sectioned up, whether there's 5 businesses, 1 business, 20 businesses, as long as it fits into what the land code says, I don't think that we should take it any step further.
Solve what you want to know, the elevations, something like that.
Sure. So they had agreed to keep the historical facade.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, we'd be happy to agree to that in the contract.
Sure. And that was something specifically that Shelley brought up in our last meeting.
Yeah, and I
They
believe,
agreed with that.
I don't know if it was the word that way, but with the, unless you did from the engineer or architect, that something had to be changed or replaced. We would keep everything the same.
I thought what I'd done was fairly friendly. I just simply said, before you go to cost of have an architect or engineer develop hard and fast plans, come in with a preliminary drawing as to what you plan on doing, so everybody can look at it. And then, after that, if everybody's okay, then go back and do the plans, and you submit the plans one time. Unless it doesn't follow what they had expressed they wanted. If they don't express if you don't want to do that, then you don't have to do that. But I just say, no, and you should vote on that.
Absolutely. And we did provide a rough draft layout of what the gym would look like and or what the building layout would be like with the gym and the office shop for the commercial space downstairs in the packet. So
Yeah, the pre-plan thing is not bad. I mean, they're providing a pre-plan, whatever. It's under the plan approval section 3.2. There's a lot of back and forth, and if they don't respond in 15 days, and the city will revoke the agreement. And I mean, you would have to read this 16 times to realize where you are even in the process. So it seems like it's very cumbersome and not really necessary tonight.
Well, it leaves the applicant exposed for.
If they're going to invest the time and invest the money, then I feel like if we wanted to babysit every step of the process, then we should have just developed the building ourselves. However, everyone decided that's not in the city's best interest. The best interest was to allow someone else to come in and develop the building. So
You want no dates, or you want one date? What would you like to do?
I think the date is to have a CO within 3 years,
that's
which is
the
what the
RFP
RFP said.
So let's pick out all the dates.
Yes.
Is there a motion to that effect? You'll need a motion. You can say it so. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
I would like to get a copy of that from Mr. Bell.
Copy of the RFP
Yeah.
of the land development.
I mean, when you have the next meeting and that discussion comes up again, I would
Sure.
like to be.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, everything that he just gave to Bernice there is on our website.
that's correct. It's on the website.
All the LDRs, all the zoning, you can get previous council packets. There's a lot of information on there. And all the council members can reach out to the Central Florida Regional Planning at any time they choose to ask these types of questions as well.
do have a couple other things. So I don't know if you were wanting to do a motion on
Well,
specific.
we have a
items.
motion and a second on that one. We'll go ahead and call a roll, then we'll continue. So is there any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember McCure, Councilmember Taylor,
I'm sorry, what did we have a motion?
We had a motion on removing the date section of the proposed contract and going back to what the original RFP was, which basically stipulates that they have 3 years to get a CO. And it's your turn for vote.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you.
So the second item was trying to narrow and define when that conveyance would happen. So this lease would be for that period until the CO is received. But as the proposal was, kind of the intention is to develop the first story. At that point, that's when we were looking for the conveyance to happen with development of the second story. So really want to make sure that that would be the intent and comfort level with council, that would be agreeable, that conveyance would happen. Development of the first story with development of the second story to happen, not development of the full building before that conveyance.
So
To do that, you need to have, covenants in deed that restrict you. Well, like, do it. I think you know that's the term. We can't just give you a clean deed and say, okay, well, we expect that you're gonna do the things that we said in the contract. That's not how it works.
I can make it very simple for everyone. So in order to get a CO, basically you have to do a lot of infrastructure for the CO. That CO is going to be a CO for the entire building. That's not going to be, a CO doesn't mean that there's drywall on the second story or that there's drywall in a particular room on the bottom story. A CO means that it is fire safe, that it is mold safe, that it is certified to be occupied. That doesn't mean that it's completely built out, every light fixture, everything is done, every building is occupied by a business. That just means it's occupiable. And it's also determined by our building code, which is currently regulated by the county. So what the CO means is that the county is okay with it being occupied and that it has fire protection and all that. In order to get to that point, you really couldn't do the bottom without the top. You're going to be doing basically the entire building, which is in this particular, if I understand correctly, it's mainly fire is the big one there, as well as some other safety and things like that.
Yeah, so we're gonna put in all the infrastructure for the plumbing upstairs for our current plan, for the bathrooms, basically what I said, but all the infrastructure and electrical, or base electrical, and then depending on the need for the build out when that time comes.
Right.
They call it basically be all shell. So what you can do is take all the bottom and then get the second floor with all shell.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I have no problem with that definition. I'm more than happy to make a motion to that effect. Is there any other comments before we go there?
I don't know if it's important or not. Under section 2.2, it says other aspects of this agreement will survive the termination of the lease as provided in this agreement. So does that mean that everything else, all requirements stay? And then the things that were binding them prior to them actually taking ownership of the building?
Yeah, all the things we agreed to, with regard to the road.
Like the historical facade and all that.
Yeah, and that's gotta be done. It's not, that's the fault. It's not to say, I think, back in the default section, the city gives you time to remedy between the law. So that shouldn't be a problem.
Is there any more discussion on the CO issue and the conveyance issue? Make a motion that we set the conveyance of the title to the CO of the building. Once the building has a CO, the title will be conveyed to the applicant.
Just clarification of that, without any covenants at all. At least one covenant associated with
This-
marijuana.
Well, yeah, but we weren't talking about specific businesses. They were asking for a
You
definition.
you have to have restrictions. Once the title is turned over to
I understand that. But we haven't set what the business is yet. This is just something setting the definition of what we meant by CO and when it will be turned over. Okay.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Do we have any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember McCure,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passes.
I believe you were asking a question before we switch.
I guess it's reverse.
Okay.
The only other section, the holding over section, event developer remains in possession of premises after the expiration of this agreement, but if we are signing it over to them, wouldn't that be a new agreement?
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
On section 14, the holding over section,
Yeah,
says in the event the developer remains in possession of the premises after the expiration of this agreement, and without execution of the new agreement, but wouldn't us signing it over to them, wouldn't that be the new agreement?
well, that's right. But I mean, say, for instance, you have lease term, and I haven't put it in there because I need your input. With regard to that, obviously 3 years, but let's say we have a hurricane in year 2. And you guys say, okay, let's give it some more time. The lease is going to have to be renewed. If they refuse to renew it, they already renew it, that's whole no. That's just typical language. Certain circumstances, we allow them to have in excess of 3 years. COVID might be over, but I'm just saying that, and that you can't hold over.
So the last sentence, in no event shall there be any renewal of this agreement. Can't renew it, you can't extend it.
They're basically holding, it's something you're basically saying, yeah, we don't really use, we're not going to do these, we're just going to do what we're doing. That's a problem, that can be forced out.
But the city council, what you got, the city council could then propose a new lease to them, and if they agree, then.
At any time, you can sign this in 6 months from now, and agree to something else is more logical, multiple parties agree.
Or they get into it a month and they figure out and they want to get it back and we agree.
That's right.
That's not gonna happen.
I have a question on 14, holding over. It shall be deemed to be occupied by the premises as a tenant as a sufferance at the rental equal to $10. Yeah, explain it.
Well, we don't have, we're not charging that as part of this lease. The lease is simply a convenience to allow them time to build the building out, to get the CO before we turn over the title. Because you can't turn over the title until you're done with what they're supposed to do. Otherwise, we have to load up the deed for all kinds of covenants that covers them for future sale and then what. So I just made basically denominator.
Any other questions on the holding over part portion? You have anything else?
So one other thing that was in the RFP was parking. So we could also incorporate that into this agreement that parking would be able to be parking spot, something like that.
99 years.
99-year lease. So we just make sure.
I thought we talked about that the last meeting, so we thought there would be street parking and so on.
It was for residential only, the 1.7. Wasn't for commercial.
1.7 is the requirement.
Yeah, per each residential unit.
Right. So I think their question is, are they getting 17 parking spaces leased to them or not? Right.
We'd like to have that. Like to add that in.
Right. Because if you ever choose to do residential in the future, that's the only way you can ever do residential if you have those parking spaces.
Well, it's not a part of our plan. 20 years, if the building's owned by somebody else, it's obviously more valuable for
Right.
parking with the ability to do residential, if that's what the city needs.
The building will be here longer than all of us. So.
That's up to you. It wasn't like the, sure, but regardless if we do residential or not, we're going to get 17 spaces. It was, if you do residential, you get 17 spaces. Right, I understand what he's saying is we may not want to do it this year, but we might want to do it 10 years from now, but you need to understand that it's not, that's why it's not a contract now.
So is there any opposition to adding it to the contract from the county? Anyone want to make a motion? To that effect?
Well, Mayor, you know, I think we're giving a lot here. I think think we're giving a lot.
So if they want to have residential in the future,
Well,
they
10
can't.
years from now, they may want to have residential, but for the year 1 through 9, they don't.
What I'm saying is they couldn't
They
without.
could, and maybe we can say if you do, we give you the parking, but we gotta give up the parking now?
But how about if we just make a contingent on the putting residential in there, but they can't use it unless they do put residential in?
Seems like fair compromise, no?
I think how that would look though, now, how would you structure that? If it's a lease that's contingent, is that just a, just trying to think of how that would look in the future.
I would think that the covenant draft has either a separate state, covenant agreement that's recorded with the deed or on the deed itself. But I leave that to our property counsel and she'll figure it out. But it just seemed to me that it's not, wasn't the original deal to give up parking spaces in the parking lot unless you have residential.
And again, I don't think it's not needed if it's not, so then that's fine.
Yeah, so the whole parking lot is public anyway. So anyone can park anywhere. The only time that it becomes a problem is that if you need a residential. So I certainly understand why you want to keep your options open, particularly if, 30 years ago to get sold, they're going to want their options open. So
Is there any other buildings nearby that might use the parking lot for their residential? I know the reason I'm saying that is if set them aside, you won't be able to give them to that particular.
So that building is surrounded on 3 sides. So all the rest of the buildings are single story, so that's really the only, because you can't live on the bottom story in C4. The only time you can live is upstairs. So unless those buildings got torn down and built back taller, that's the only way that anybody else would be able to live downtown in that spot. The reason why I bring that up is because other buildings have been refused being able to develop into living because they did not have parking spaces. So it definitely has been a problem for other buildings, so it's reasonable to think it would be a problem for them in the future if they don't have it spelled out now.
And that's why we're looking at the parking, just because the city has a need for residential in 20 years. Somebody's got to come back before here, beg for parking.
Sure.
in this building if they want to go residential.
Yeah.
Or for a mental.
Sure.
So the way I understand this is that we'll add a provision for parking for 17 spaces contingent on the building residential in the future. Like 2 17 spaces.
That's approval. And we'll let the attorneys figure out the legal wording and all that. I'm fine with that. Is there a motion to that effect? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember McCure,
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passes.
Anything else?
So the last one of the substance is the personal guarantee that is a part of the lease. Given there's no financial reason to pay, find it a little bit, to have the personal guarantee involved. But it's bringing that before. Significance of that.
It's tied to the liens, the lien contract that says no liens are allowed, liens placed, have to be removed immediately. If the company, gets lien, doesn't pay a contractor of whatever sorts, and that they lien our property, that's what it's violation of law. And that's why we have to exclude it. Then who are we going to go after if this company goes bankrupt? And that's the reason they pay them.
But the problem is personal guarantee is not limited to that. It's just a broad personal guarantee. That's the fulfillment of the entire thing. That's very different than a personal guarantee as a specific lien.
All right, so what, I'm not, does it mean, what else is he going to guarantee as far as, what sort of things he's afraid of? Because if he leaves the backhoe on a drive and it goes into the building and takes the building down, that's another way that you have to have some coverage for payment. I'm just throwing that out there, that I don't say that you have to do it, I'm just saying, you got nothing from a company that's, formed. And it's not, unless you want to provide, financials and show that you guys can afford, the companies can afford to pay it, and it's not gonna, go bankrupt in the construction. It's a pretty typical provision for this type of development, you can be responsible for your property. That's an issue. I think to you.
Well, Jerry, so if a company is, like a construction company, they have obviously liability insurance for anything that's damaged while it's under construction. Developer, I'm assuming, would be somewhat similar, even if, a rental, you would have rental insurance, that sort of thing. And as far as the personal guarantee, it's backed up by the building itself. Basically, if they go bankrupt and they don't continue, then the building reverts back to the city anyway, right? During the lease period, but not during the other.
Well, and I don't guarantee that it doesn't survive. So, yeah, insurance can pay it.
So could it be backed up by insurance rather than personal guarantee? I guess it's kind of the point.
Well, I think it is. Asking for $5 million for the guarantee or something. I don't know what the possibilities are. I simply give you things based on the risk.
And that's, I'm asking your opinion.
I put it in there because I thought it might be, it would be something that was worthwhile. It's unlikely it'll ever come to that. I signed a personal guarantee when I ran this space in a shopping center and built it out. So I had to sign a guarantee. Everybody pretty much has to do this. Using somebody else's property. It doesn't have, $1 million worth of corporate assets.
Sure. Well, yeah, in many cases, an insurance policy would be more valuable than a person's personal guarantee. That insurance policy is for a defined amount, and that person's personal assets may not be nearly as much as the insurance policy, right? So,
That's very possible. Yeah. It does make somebody a little bit more it's careful. Space, but it's up to you. Right? So I put it in there.
Well, I'm sure that
you all assume the risk.
Sure. I'm sure your attorney would come up with something that may be agreeable to you guys, and obviously bring it back to the county.
Yeah, so we can talk about, and this kind of gets into the paragraph 10 about casualty. Again, this is a more nuanced deal, and I'm trying to stay out of all of the nuance of this contract and talk about, but there's a provision about duty to rebuild of if casualty that comes that the developer has the duty to rebuild. The very next sentence talks about a 90% threshold. In the paragraph before, all the insurance requirements, casualty insurance is not a requirement for the developer. So I don't know if the city has casualty insurance on that property, but if they do, it shouldn't be the sole cost of the developer to build if it's covered by insurance, to the extent that it's covered by insurance. So again, I think there just needs to be some clarity around insurance as well and how that fits into.
Gary, is there any insight into that question?
No, I think it's this is a provision that's a this provision that take it out. That's fine. I think it's spectacular.
Yeah, I guess the question for the city staff would be, do we have casualty insurance on that building?
As far as I know.
Okay. And if we do have casualty insurance on that building, as the attorney had asked, does that cover it, Jerry?
Should be our sole cost of expense, the expense to rebuild. If the city's also getting insurance, it's a double windfall to the city.
You never get that for your insurance.
Perhaps we'll let you guys discuss that and bring it back to the next council meeting. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, is there anything else city council members can ask or?
So just one sentence in section 11 says that the developer cannot sublet the premises. Would that limit them being able to lease some spaces for other businesses?
It's just trying to. So you can't go do that to see I can be able to assign it, I can be able to assign it to somebody else and say, yeah, I've done it, let these people do it, because he chose him based on his plan and his experience and so on.
Anything else? None? All right, so the attorneys will have a discussion. We will plan on having Central Florida Regional Planning at our next meeting to talk about some potential businesses that we do not want to see there. And anything else? Okay, moving on. Item number 10, we have the intersection of Circle Street and Morse Lane Avenue. Shelley McCurry.
So I've been approached by a couple people who live on that street. They would like to get some kind of stop sign to stop people from running through the stop sign on both ways, coming from Circle and coming from, well, I guess both ways of Circle. Whether it be little bumps, like the bumps that are on Delaney and, or not Delaney, but Bell and Canoga. They're not full speed bumps, they're not full tall speed bumps, they're just small little, like, match them down.
Like speed strip.
Yeah. I should have a video of people I went and sat for 30 minutes on the lake. You'll see that 3 people ran right through the stop sign without any care.
Not a black 1500.
No,
Just kidding.
It was a ramp.
It was 30 seconds. 30 minutes.
Oh, 30 minutes that I said. Now, and if you also see that the sidewalks go on one side, you have to cross over the lane, back across the circle to get on the other side of the sidewalk. And if people are not stopping at the stop signs, that becomes like really big hazard.
So I guess the question will be is, do they realize that there's a stop sign there or not? Because if they realize there's a stop sign and they're not stopping, then what difference is it going to make what you put there? Other than a police officer?
There has been a notice that somebody went out. Well, I guess the city went out, but they registered down the stop sign.
Right.
And put a caution stop sign.
Yeah.
If they're not paying attention to the stop sign, they're not gonna acknowledge that, hey, you gotta stop at the stop sign.
That's what I'm getting at, is even if there's, speed strip there, if they know that the stop sign there, and they're consciously saying, I know there's stop sign there, I'm not gonna stop, I don't want to, what difference is it gonna make if there's something like that? Other than a cop, that there's a ramification.
I wouldn't want to know why. I just think it brings awareness to them more than just seeing it.
You don't think that people run stop signs everywhere all the time?
Accidents all the time.
Right.
Granted, there's not been one at that intersection, but I don't see why it would be such a big deal to just stop before it happens. We have them on Lake 2 Lane. We have speed tables on Lake 2 Lane. There's little squish down things at stop signs. There's some at, like I said, under the bill.
Well, I mean, I know that the average driver absolutely hates speed bumps. They don't like having to run over things like that. So it's kind of like the same thing as the banning guns argument. If there's a few people out there that cause crimes and cause trouble, why do we all have to suffer for their stupidity? I say catch those people, charge them to the fullest extent of the law, and everybody else can get on with their life.
So we will get a police officer out there to say hello.
As much as we can, what I'm getting at is that this is not the only intersection. I'm sure there's probably 100 intersections where this very same thing happens. And if you're not going to do it to all of them, what is the point? Well, I'm asking, this is a debate.
Well, no, I don't know. I understand you can't put at every single stop sign. But as far as the sidewalk breaking in half and you have to go to the other side of the street and acknowledging that people are running the stop sign. Deterrent from having somebody.
I got a question for you, Shelley. Miss Shelley, have you talked to the residents? Was it a lot of residents that was complaining or just a few? I think there's three that was complaining.
And I wouldn't say complaining, I would just say that they were voicing their concern.
And they said it's been going on for a long time.
It happens when the kids get out of school. It happens right before dusk.
So there's a lot of kids that walk that area most of the time.
Kids that walk to school. There's elderly people, there's kids that are outside playing.
How much, I'm gonna ask this to the manager, I don't know if he knows or not. How much would that cost? Speak on.
Well, we actually have a bid included in our package.
The bid is for speed bump. Speed bumps are not allowed on the public streets.
Actually, with the, if you saw the handout, actually, I got it from Jerry, chapter 15, it's from FDOT that talks about that. Actually, it says that in there. If I can just bring up what Shelley brought up, because she knows who put new signs up in that. After the last meeting, I went out there to look at it. And my first question was, why is it even a three-way stop? It just seemed kind of odd. But I did get with Rick Reed and David Roberts to go out and take a look at it because some of the signs look like they're getting older. If there was tree limbs hanging across or whatever, we want to make it recognizable as we could. And they asked the same thing, why was it a three-way stop? And then, of course, anytime you're going to make any, as they call it here, traffic calming, you do studies on engineering, but one of them is traffic crash. So I got hold of the sheriff's office, and the only crash they had was at 215 East Circle. I think that's the church. And that was an accident without injuries back in 2015. So there hasn't been any traffic crashes there.
Over with that little circle that they have there, circle drive, somebody was pulling in or pulling out of that.
Could have been, it's just a minor one, but also the Major Hood asked the same thing. Why is that a three-way stop? I don't know if that was engineered years ago to be a three-way stop. There is a problem with almost every intersection, people not stopping. That was brought up because I talked to the Major that, well, actually I talked to our ex-mayor Schuler, who brought it up. I'm assuming she was one who lives in the area because she talked to me about the other night. Thanks for putting up signs, but making it better, but it's probably not going to stop anything. And she said the last time, I don't know how long ago this was, that the deputies were out there, they were sitting in a marked unit in the church parking lot. And got a sharp lieutenant back there. I'm sure that he could have deputies when they're not busy on other things. They've got a lot of traffic duties in between going from call to call. But I'm sure he would make sure they're not sitting in the open, and if need be, and there's that many running, probably have an unmarked car. There's ways of doing it. He would probably say the same as me. Some deputies just want to sit there and tell their LT that they were there, and others want to catch people running the stop sign and giving them tickets. But I personally think that's the way we should start, see what law enforcement could actually do. And most of the time in residential areas is people that live there, because most of us don't travel that road unless we live there. Most don't travel on my road unless you live there. And
There's 5 stop signs after that and 5 stop signs
right.
before that.
And most people complain they're speeders. It's when the deputy police officer runs the radar, it's usually people that live in the area that speed and get the tickets. So I think we should give it a try through the sheriff's office, which the LT will take care of, and both his bosses know about this. I got hold of the captain and the major on it and see what they can do as far as some traffic enforcement, because you write a few tickets out there and word's going to spread. The sheriff's office will write you a citation. I'm not a believer in warnings. Warnings don't work, but when it comes out their money out of the pocket, it tends to work. I think that's how we should start out. But on Shelley's note, I did, like I said, I wonder why it became a three-way stop, but I did notice the sidewalk cuts from the north to the south and the south. That could be there. Yeah.
think about that, Michelle? But the police, what you think about that, putting the police out there first? You don't think of that?
I mean, you're gonna see a police officer, you're gonna do right.
Like whenever you're
When he's
speeding on the
gone,
highway,
you're not gonna.
whenever you're speeding on the highway and you see a cop car and all of a sudden you realize how fast you're going. That's what it is.
Exactly.
Well, from the one person I talked about that said there's one vehicle that's always on it. Well, maybe they can catch that one vehicle, so.
Well, there was 3 the other night.
Well, I mean, 2 of those people were going so daggone slow. I don't think that they're going to run into anyone. So, you know, the one person blew right through it. So, you know, geez, people, we all gotta live in this world. You want me to go put speed bumps in front of your house? No, you don't. You know,
Well, and it's not a speed bump that's gonna tear off your wheels and make your headlights fall out.
it might.
It's only a small one so they can say, oh, you know, they can feel that they need to stop.
My only concern is if we do it at this intersection, where I'm wondering how many other individuals are gonna come and ask for one, and are they obligated to take them everywhere, or?
Unless you have an absolute quantifiable scientific fact as to why you're doing it and how it's gonna be limited to that or a X number of them, then it's exactly right. It's gonna be everywhere.
Thank you. I was good comment on that. It's in fact, DOT strongly states that we have studies done and kind of plan as to how you can do these. They have to all conform to the standards of the manual. And it's one of the things I'm concerned about is right by the stop sign. If somebody didn't see the stop sign and sees the last second, back into the car, you know, easily back in and go up high enough where you lose traction. You could slide through the car and actually that way.
Wait, what?
Where
You're
you
not
can-
gonna put the thing right up on top of the stop sign. It will
Well,
be back. a little bit.
The distances from each end of the street have to be established according to DOT, and the length of the road should be, you know, we have a minimums, maximums after what states the size of the street. It's in the standard here. You know, but
Oh, no, I got one, but I'd like to know how they got them over on Bell Street, or, Anoka and, Bell Street.
now to ask that about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and how did they end up on Lake Tulane?
What?
And how did they end up on Carolina?
I think
Avenue?
like Tulane was a private road, wasn't it, one time?
Well, it says in public streets, you can't have speed bumps.
Right.
You can have
Then
speed
how is
humps,
that
speed
possible?
humps and speed tables. Those are different things. The speed hump is about half the size of the car, half the length of the car. It goes up on the hump. You've seen it before.
Okay,
But the difference between that and this speed, the speed table is actually as big as a car. So you can go all the way up on top of it and you go all the way down.
Have you ever been out to Highlands Camp? Yeah, the
That's
bump,
speed table,
that's usually
right, and that's definitely not what I'm talking
speed bump is a.
about. I'm not even talking about a bump. I'm talking about a latched down piece of concrete on the ground.
I get what you're talking about.
It's that thing you're talking about, rubber street.
Right, but I don't understand how you say they're not allowed on whole streets when they're all over now.
Speed
Well, speed
bump.
bumps aren't allowed, but you're talking about rubber strip, and what they say is they consider other inappropriate treatments, and I want to mention rubber strips, these applications of high maintenance employment and cause severe noise problems are also can be out to bicycles. But in general, when you put these types of home devices on a street, sometimes you divert the problem to another street, and somebody else is unhappy, they come and say, so that's why.
Okay, so in the meantime, we just wait, right?
Well, I mean, to be honest,
Oh, I understand, but I just don't understand how there are other places in town, but yet we have such a problem with one here. Especially where the sidewalk has to crack and you have to cross the street.
if it was up to me, I'd rip them all. Because I don't think it's right. But in this particular intersection, that intersection didn't have a stop sign in it for most of my life, which means that it was probably for about 90% of Avon Park. As former cop, as the sheriff's department said, they couldn't figure out why it was a three-way stop to begin with. It should be a through lane. The only reason that the stop signs there to begin with is because people complained. It was the same people that complained to you. That's the only reason why they're there. Trust me, a stop sign is the happy medium. Because by all lawful effects, we should get rid of that stop sign. So I know that that would cause even more of an issue for these people. This is the happy medium.
Well, I was asked to approach the council, and that's what I did, so.
You absolutely fulfilled your responsibility as a council person.
And I would ask the LT in the back here, if you guys could just provide me any stats you get from work this weekend.
Anything else on that intersection? Seeing none. The sign up. Is there anyone here on behalf of Delhi's organization there? The Without Borders.
They were gonna attend on Zoom, but they haven't logged in yet.
Okay. I see some faces in the back is the reason why I'm asking. Is there another sign up?
No, that's for the roadway I told you about.
Okay. All right. Moving on to city manager updates.
Ma'am, our management agreement's pretty much done, other than some exhibits to be added to it. We're gonna try to get it on your next meeting. If not, it'll be the one after that, because we thought it was ready, but there's still a couple things on it, especially getting the exhibits. And they're also, I don't know, have they got hold of you about AITP? No. Okay. There's been a little discussion on that and which way they want to go. Actually, the last one was, Jerry saw it, the outside council said they shouldn't start working on the lease until we get this AIPP, because only after we get it is the attorney's fees going to be paid under it, because right now with our outside attorney and our consultant, we're getting close to $200,000. The family will have it now. If it doesn't appear that anything we've already spent is going to be covered under the AIPP.
We're not gonna be able to recoup any of that grant.
It didn't look like it right there. So
Specifically accepted.
Okay. Were we awaiting some type of a hearing on that to give us an actual answer?
No, I'm really waiting for feedback when we got the feedback, was not good. After discussing with Dana, as previously mentioned, we decided that that alternative would be to go with what DOT wanted us to do and strongly encouraged us to do instead. So a lot of the comments said, this won't work. But of course, it would work if we did it this way. And so they were trying to push us into that pocket as we go. They gave us that bigger than what the grant line, but the grant line is restricted according to the law.
So we are still waiting on an agreement from that.
the management agreement, like I said, that hopefully will be on your next agenda in 2 weeks.
Any questions on that, man, council?
The recycling agreement, as I told you earlier, that'll be on your next agenda for you to decide if you want to move forward with it or not. The Ray from that's handling the Vet Jam event contacted us. He has to postpone his date. There was a problem with his 501c3 or whatever it is, keep up to date on it. But he talked to you today, right? So he's very apologetic, and they're working on that. The thing I handed out there, we had a lot of add-ons, as you know. This map I gave you here that shows South Lake Boulevard for the past several months. CFRPC, Randy, myself, Jerry's been involved. Been talking to a developer. He's here tonight, Chris Miller. I just happened to call him this afternoon, just tell him what's going on there. It was an add-on because Jerry and I talked Friday on this after everything was out. Because what it is, well, there's a couple things. As you look in here, you'll see the blue, that's all in the city. Well, the roadway, South Lake Boulevard, which is the one right off the lake there, the county got with us a couple months ago now probably and said, we're no longer going to maintain it. It's yours. It's in the city limits and goodbye, basically. Well, we had a few chats with them. They had a meeting with them, one when I was actually out of state for a couple days. And I got back and got with the county attorney because they were just gonna stop doing, or county attorney, the county administrator, they agreed to maintain it until we could come figure out what we're gonna do. Kind of what we're here tonight was Jerry and I talked Friday about it. And he said, why don't we put it, talk to council tonight on it, because the county wants to get rid of the road, give it to us. We've got a force main basically that runs under that road there. So I've talked to Chris Miller and also with their engineer, Kimley Horn engineer. And they want to shut that road down because they want to put a big development in there. And you can speak more of that if you'd like to. So Jerry wanted to bring that up tonight on the way to do it, and not only get it from the county to us abandon the road, but then us to get the easement there.
Right, we abandoned the road in exchange for an easement for the line, and they seem agreeable to that with the line being in place. Otherwise, they would have to reroute the line themselves. But it's, some people use this, it's dirt drive, so it's not a great prize, but there are people use it, they might have a problem with this abandonment. We'll go through the process, of course. But ultimately, your decision, we want to see if you have an interest in making it, or there was a lot of opposition to that.
So this development, it would be gated, so there would be no traffic, there would be no through traffic.
Actually, I mean, Chris can speak for it, but the last I talked to them, basically, if they can't get this closed, they're probably not going to go ahead with this.
Name for the record and company you're associated with?
Hi, good evening. My name is Shannon Reed. I'm here representing Sunlight Resorts on behalf of Chris Miller and the rest of our team. So I'm going to be passing out to you guys actually two different printed maps. One is going to be the actual rendering so far as the current conceptual plan for the development. And then the other one is going to be referencing the existing conditions and demolition plan, referencing the two right-of-ways that right now are in your jurisdiction.
Okay.
What did you say the name of this development was? We're owned by Sunlight Resorts. It's the name of our organization. We actually own Resort at Canopy Oaks in Lake Wales.
Oh,
And
the RV
we-
resort.
Correct.
Okay.
And then this could be,
Well, I was about to correct. It is actually, yes, Resort at Canopy Oaks is an RV resort. This is actually going to be a mobile home development.
Stationary, I mean.
Correct.
Permanent.
Yes.
we know there's Twin Lakes development, right?
Yes,
Okay.
Twin Lakes development is the way that it sits because it's sitting between the two lakes.
Have you been out to Crystal Lake? Here in Illinois?
Yes.
Okay. So compared to Crystal Lake, using that as an example, is it
So those
set
are
up
more-
similar or?
It is similar, but those are more of a modular home type basis. These are more of a mobile home type basis. But you're talking upper end mobile homes with drywall, tiled in showers. Most of them are double wides, most of them 3 and 4 bedroom. Very nice housing options for this area.
Chris, you want to speak, just put your name in the microphone?
Chris Miller. I'm just gonna add what Shannon said, we got a 12,000 square foot clubhouse, playing room for that, $500,000 pool, all the amenities, gym, the whole. It's like 5 stars.
Is this a funded project?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're not having to go out for anything else at this point? If we could go ahead, it's ready to rock and roll. What is your, if you had to go ahead today, how long before it would be operational?
We're counting 7 weeks.
Okay.
I've done it 10 months.
Wow.
All the amenities are there, pickleball, bocce ball. It's a beautiful layout. It's really a very nice upgrade to that area, as we all know.
Sure.
That is a challenged area in your community. And so it really would be something that would bring a lot of value to the surrounding area.
Okay.
Is it age restricted? No, ma'am, it is not. Which, and that benefit, we're hoping to pull, college students, there's all around this area to be able to offer an affordable housing option.
So do they, does the customer bring their own unit in?
No, sir.
We sell the units, so they're all standardized.
They never,
Ordered the first 200.
they never own the property. You guys always maintain ownership of the property itself. Actually, so as soon as something,
Not plot or something.
as soon as something falls out of disrepair, you guys pluck it out and get something.
What's the approximate price range?
I mean, I'm not ready to get in that yet, but, we're gonna be selling and renting kind of a combination, yeah, so we're on that.
So you have selling and renting then?
Yeah.
From a legal process, what would we have to do if we wanted to entertain closing?
Well, the county owns the road at this moment. We can either have them turn the road over to us and then we vacate it, or we can have them vacate it. Either way, there has to be an easement comes after, because they couldn't use it until the property is vacated. Yeah, I'm aware of that. So, I mean, the county. Depends on it. It's the easiest way to do it. Kind of wants to do it. Probably prefer to have us do the work and transfer it to us and then have us figure.
So I got a question for Mr. Burke. We're really just wanting to vacate it because we don't want to maintain it? Is that the reason?
No, it's because they won't do the development because they need that area. They don't want to have people going. And so they're looking for people to do that.
And there's multiple reasons why, great question, but, our site, we have 380 sites right now. If we put that road in the middle of our deal, it'll probably take up 40 lots plus, which is a huge deal. And not only that, you got to fence off both sides and there's traffic going right in the middle of a community,
I realize that the easements would be very wide as well, right? It's not
For the power lines?
With water.
Enforcement.
enforcement. Yeah, there has to
That
be.
are okay to move it one to two.
It has to be. It has to be.
That is the road that our force main currently runs under.
Yeah. So what it was saying is it has to be big enough for a tractor to get through there, which is a fairly wide field.
Correct.
So
Correct.
it probably could be either way. So if you want to move it, that's their option. That's up to you.
Yeah, okay.
But we need to know soon.
Yeah, no, I know, and I'll do the answer soon, because we're 3/4 and engineering plus done, so I've got to exclude that if that's the case, but we can move it. We're okay.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, you can't put buildings over it.
Yeah, that's right. We gotta move it.
You can't put, shrubbery over it, things like that, so.
Sure.
Right. That's right. Now, it's like a street, you can't vacate it, future, if you don't need it, but it's perpetual as long as we need it for, enforcement.
So what the question comes down to is, are we doing a disservice to the community anyway by closing it, more or less? So are we going to be closing off a route into the surrounding area? That road, I can tell you, I've traveled that road several times. Other than tire piles and gut piles, it's not utilized that much that I can see because it's not typically maintained extremely well. It usually has very large ridges on it, so if you're driving there with a vehicle, it will shake your vehicle apart. It's better to drive through the grove than it will be to drive on that road, usually.
Yeah, I can add to that. There's just like our makers and our some of the people, it's already all approved and done, but I haul 6 dumpster loads of stuff just to clean that place up before there's meetings. I'm sure there's a couple more already sitting there.
Sure.
So, but yeah, it's a huge deal for the
That's
I would like, sorry, Mr. Burke. I would like the opportunity to go out and see, this was just given to us today. I would like the opportunity to go out and see what you guys talked about, because I have no.
Sure. And if we were going to entertain closing it, we would have to have 2 weeks.
Yeah, but I think that they need to know, what is your inclination at this point, because they need to move forward on the project or not.
It's definitely, we're majorly into it. It's definitely a time thing for sure. And if we're ready to go in 7 weeks, this road's holding something, it's a big deal.
kind of add what I mentioned to someone earlier, but, you know, we just put another 100 acres in the city in contract today. And a lot of that is depending on how some of these things go, unfortunately, with the city helping us out with this people. So.
Yeah.
Just kind of put that out.
My first reaction, just based off the previous experience, would be that I would be in favor of it. Obviously, as part of the process, there would be public participation, so anyone would have an opportunity to come and speak. So obviously, if there's a big big backlash from the public, you know, obviously, we're as council people, we need to be open to that, so.
What would be the impediment to us going ahead and transferring the road to the city soon, so that we have, you know, authority over it? But we still have to have the county maintain it, because we don't have the equipment.
Well, we don't have the equipment to maintain it now.
So we need to know. what-
It's show.
Yeah, we need to get this done fairly soon. I would say that we all pretty much at the same time transfer from the county to the city, and have the city vacate as far as 2 readings, ordinance, 2 readings, and posted signs and so on.
So are you looking just for a consensus from the council tonight?
Yeah, just really pretty much give them some idea of the board is. They want the road closed no matter what, but whether they move the force main or not is their own expense. You know, that's up to them. If you want that totally clean, it needs to be moved. It can't be moved to the power line because the power line never give us access to that.
The issue on the utility side is that it needs to be moved or whatever, because if we try to run around the opposite side of the lake, that's a long run to try to move that force main. So somewhere there's got to be a little give for the utility to be able to have the force main, whether we have right away, some kind of something needs to be given.
Yeah, I can let y'all know for it in a week, either I just, you know, that small easement or I just pay for it, which most likely that's the case. But I found out about this meeting a few hours ago. I don't know, not like I'm not good at it, but just for, you know, other reasons, I like to have my attorney here to talk for me next time, even though I don't, you know, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I guess if we do got to talk to public, that's something legally we have to do, you know.
That's fine, and feel free to have them give me a call. You know, what, want to work with you as far as, you know, first and tell at this point and try to get that done. But the next make up your mind what you're going to do on that as soon as possible. But bear in mind, the easements have to be wider than, you know, wide enough for track mill, which is about 20 feet. 15 to 20 feet, is that right? So, Rick, you still there?
I'm still there, but I catch every other third word. It's really hard understanding you guys. I'm sorry.
How wide does the easement need to be, Rick?
The easement needs to be at least 15 feet wide. We've got to have a track hoe come down it and a truck side by side so we can load out and bring in dry dirt if we have a break or anything of that nature. So you get much narrower than that, you really don't have enough room to get equipment side by side. You can't just dig on top of the pipe. You have to be able to set equipment one side and the other side if you have a break.
Yeah, I'll actually do the answer now. We will 100% move it. I'll put it right tomorrow. We'll pay whatever the cost is. To do
All right,
that.
we'll need an agreement for the movement because it has to meet specifications of the city and so on.
Right.
Okay?
So at this point in time, are any council members opposed to the project?
I don't oppose to it. I just want to be able to see what you guys talking about. Like I said,
For sure.
just got this today. I have no idea what the piece of property. we're talking about. I would
Not
like
much
to
to see it's perfect now, but
No, I want to
Got
see,
that?
I want to see what she wants to say. I want to do a visual on it.
yeah. You have
It's
this
just me.
plan.
I'm sorry, sir?
You have this plan now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I personally would be for it, just because I've been part of the APAC meetings and things like that, and housing for all price points right now is so dire. So I feel like the development would definitely add to what's available in the park.
Sure.
Well, we need a utility service agreement anyway to proceed forward with the project, because we need to get you hooked up to capacity as well. So maybe the way to do is to work this all out inside that utility agreement.
I think the majority
Now,
of
on-
that are we done or close to, or our engineer Langer probably hasn't done something on it yet.
Yeah, we have a utility agreement.
On the utility side, the water is available. And we have a lift station there that may need to be just upgraded a little bit to take their sewer flow. Other than just rerouting that line, I don't see an issue with the project going forward at all.
That looked pretty exciting when, asked earlier. I'm not gonna throw a number out yet, but yeah, the housing could be 20% lower on cost than anything else you can find, plus brand new any community, want to add, so.
Very good. All right. Well, it looks at this point like things are ready to move forward, but we have to get those agreements in place. So I would implore you to work with our staff and get that as quickly as possible so we can get it to a vote.
Thank you so much for your time. Can I just ask you one question? Absolutely. Your access to the property would be where? I mean, would you have two entryways or one entryway, or which road would it lead on?
I would consider by the racetrack.
So it goes into Marble?
I think the CF or what's in the central Florida planning to make us have a second entry exit, but that's gonna be closed off for emergency and stuff like that.
Okay, so you come off of 27 into Marble, and that would gain access here.
Correct.
And so there would be nothing at the back?
No.
So one access only.
All right, be access for our within development with the coders on it, but it's not gonna be open to go through.
Yeah.
Sure.
Nothing open to the public except the one entry.
Right.
Anything else on this project?
Is there a lot of traffic going through there? No?
No.
On the dirt road, no, there's not, and the traffic that does go through there is not the best traffic. There's a lot of illegal dumping that goes on. I don't know if you heard what Mr. Miller said, but several times already we've gone out there and had to do cleanup projects, and it's all the way 6 to 10 truckloads full of just people dumping tires, people dumping trash, people dumping high chairs.
Perhaps you could ask the sheriff's department for a report on the reported crime in that area.
Yes,
Illegal dumping's been there for at least 30 years. The training manual.
Correct. And this would be a way to do away with that.
I'm not saying no, I just want to see. it.
Absolutely. Informative decisions are the best. Yes.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anything else, Mr. Manager?
Shelley, do you want to bring up about Heartland Regional Transportation?
Yes, I'm so sorry, but I'm gonna have to withdraw from that board because I didn't realize it was like possible. And I didn't realize it was been between work hours. So-
Every time?
So far, I mean, I've not heard anything except for the meeting that's taking place at what, 2:00, I think?
Did they say that that's where they're
In
gonna
Lake
meet
Placid.
from now on? Because they used to always meet at the,
I can confirm the details. I have a copy of it.
they used to meet in the Board of County Commissioners chamber.
Well, if it's during working hours.
It's during work hours. It's usually between 10 o'clock and 1.
This one's in Lake Placid.
What's the name of the meeting?
They weren't.
Yeah, it's the HRTPO, so it's the Heartland, I forget the exact regional, but basically it's the DOT wing of the Heartland. So it's several counties that are together to form the Heartland TPO. You basically sit in on what the future growth, what future expansions are of DOT projects. You do have some input as to needs, but not a whole lot. It's more or less being abreast and being a liaison between the DOT and your particular community. So in this case, Avon Park.
It's in Lake Placid, and how often
This
is it?
particular one was in Lake Placid, but I have a feeling that's just a one-time thing.
It is because I had Rick Whalen going to him when he was here and they were super.
Brenda
Yeah.
did say that they're in the scheduling phase, so nothing is confirmed. She's just working on it and sending those invites.
Yeah, I sat on that board for several years, and it was always at the Board of County Commissioners office in their chamber.
So now that she knows that it's not in Lake Placid, you still don't want to do that?
Well, it's not that I don't, it's just get scheduling conflicts with my job and these county.
So how often do they meet?
Once every quarter, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's.
Once every quarter.
That,
4 times a year.
Okay. That's it.
Okay, you're agreeing to it? We have a taker?
Take her.
Okay. I think it has to be also approved by the Board of County Commissioners also. But in either case,
I know we did 9 years. But I don't know. I don't think it. We'll find out.
okay, in either case, could you make sure that she gets put on the email and
City clerk's gonna be right on.
They'll probably give you a call or an email and give you kind of an orientation and et cetera, et cetera. You should- Some of it gets a little dry. I'll tell you that now.
Once a quarter, I should be able to do.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right. Anything else?
Yeah, did you want to approve Delhi's thing here, so you sent 16?
Sure. All right. So this is Without Borders. They're asking to do another community event. They've done several in Avon Park. I helped with a couple of them. They run the Tip Top organization. They give away a lot of food, give away a lot of games. They do a lot for the community, and it's always been a good event. Haven't had any trouble out of them thus far. I highly recommend approving it. Anything they'd like to do. Anyway.
And this will be waived the fees.
Yep. So the actual request, they're looking for is it gonna be for the community center or Donaldson Park, excuse me. It'll be on 4/16. It's coming up soon, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Well, like I said, it's an Easter outreach. They're usually very quick. They have a lot of help at these events. They typically have 20 or 30 people helping, so all their things go pretty quick.
They're gonna have an Easter egg hunt for kids.
Yeah. That's about the best we could do without them being here to answer questions. So anything else you want to know, maybe we can answer. Maybe we can't. Any questions? Anyone want to make a motion? I'll make a motion to approve Without Borders Easter outreach event and waive fees for the Donaldson Park. Is there a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember McGuire,
Yes.
Councilmember McCure,
I have to abstain from this, though, because I work in Delhi, harvesting, the harvesting company.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Anything else?
Just a good thing we passed on. We were walking out about, walking out about 3 o'clock. The city clerk and I come over here and set up, and there was an elderly gentleman getting in his car, and I just started a little conversation with him. He's turning 100 years old in June. He looked like he's about 70, probably didn't, he looked in really good shape, and he passed on. He's been a vegan for 50 years, and he said, "Young man, you need to drink 2 warm glasses of water." So I'm warm up drinking some warm water. Actually, I told her it was a blessing. He gave us some books on, he was handing out books leading people to Christ, so still in the Word at almost 100 years old.
Well, God bless
It's on a good note.
Anything else from the good city? Seeing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Seeing no opposition. So we need a motion to adjourn. Seeing no opposition, we are adjourned.